This is Sporting Life.
Welcome along to the Sporting Life Racing podcast. David Orr, joined by Fran Berry, Matt Bucklebank, Billy Nash and Graham Cunningham. And unfortunately, we obviously have to start at the top. The tragic death over the weekend of Michael O'Sullivan, aged 24. Fran, I mean, you work closely, obviously, within the Irish racing industry. What were your thoughts when you heard the news, your memories of Michael, and how's the racing world been reacting?
Dave, what is it, 13 days since that fall in Thurles, and you knew from day one, and the word was not good at all. The fact he was airlifted to hospital initially, and then what seemed to be, not positive updates at any stage throughout the treatment that Michael was receiving at Cork University Hospital. And there is a sense from that day until the news filtered through that he passed away on Sunday of hope. I suppose you're hoping against hope that Michael will recover and he could go on to make a a return to an active life or whatever along those lines. But when the finality of the news filtered through first thing on Sunday morning with that text or tweet or email from IHRB that Michael had passed, it really hit home. And it's been a tough few days talking to people, and I went down with a carload of racing professionals yesterday to the wake in Mallow, Lombardstown, County Cork, to his home place, and it was heartbreaking to see his family, what they're going through, what they've gone through, and it's very, very hard to put into words what you can say about them and what the dignity that they're dealing with it. And also, I came out there very, very proud to be, very proud to be involved in a sport.
Well said, Fran. Well said.
Very, very proud to be involved in a sport that treats people when the chips are down as well as there were. There was people in the queue there. There was security men for the races. There was amateur jockeys, stable staff directing traffic, people helping out with cups of tea. I spoke to some of the medical team that dealt with Michael at the track, and I think there's one good thing to take for this, Dave. It's talking to the medical team, getting him to Cork University Hospital, getting him treated, getting him onto life support and all of that. It allowed him to be an organ donor and allowed his family obviously time with him, but giving him that gift of life to hopefully 2 or 3 other people, I think, is the good thing you can take from this. And I think that's what the medical team are taking, and hopefully in time his family will get comfort from that as well. But it just hit me on the way home last night, to be honest. Just a whole, it's an arm's length in some respects when you're hearing about these things, but when you see it up front, it's heartbreaking. And safety improvements and everything that goes on in racing is constantly evolving, but you can never negate the risk that jockeys face on a day-to-day equation and on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to be a tough time, and I admire his colleagues who I've seen in the queue yesterday, queuing for his wake. They've had to go out and ride over the last 2 weeks and continue on like normal, and it can't be normal, but they did, and they're credited to themselves and their profession.
Thank you for that, Fran. You say you wrote a piece on Sunday about at times before, hope is all that we had, all that we could offer. I mean, I think Fran spoke fantastically about it. You just have no words.
Yeah, follow that, as they say. Well said, Fran. Absolutely pitch perfect. Think back, gents, Mourinho. 2 weeks ago, that young fella had the world at his feet. He really did. At 24, looking forward to Cheltenham, etc. 2 weeks ago. And now, we're recording this just after 11 on a Wednesday morning. His family, his friends, his colleagues are making the way into church for his funeral ceremony. And I can't comprehend what they're going through. Remember, this lad has a mum and dad. He has a granny, a brother, a partner, a wide range of friends, professional and personal, who are going to carry this tragedy with them for a long, long time. All we can say is that we wish them all the best. And that if we can take one thing from it, to try and carry ourselves with that half of that dignity, quarter of that dignity, then something positive will come out of this. So beautifully said, Fran. Thank you.
And Billy, when you watch the videos, the tributes to Michael that have been broadcast, what a prodigious talent he was in the saddle. You watch Marine Nationale in that Sky Bet Supreme, and you just think, what a ride.
Yeah, look, I didn't know Michael personally. I had spoken to a good few people over the past couple of days that did, or that had dealings with him, and everybody says the same thing. You know, that all the tributes you've seen are that have been written about him. You know, what a smashing guy he was, and yeah, we saw what a really talented jockey he was as well. But look, Michael I suppose he was much more than the jockey, and as the lad said there, he's going to be really sadly missed by his family, his friends, all his colleagues, the local communities there in Lombardstown and Gortrue. I know exactly how big an impact a tragedy like this is going to have on a small area. And look, my heart sank on Sunday morning when I saw this news. Like Fran, I had an inkling it was coming, but I didn't really want to believe that, you know. So really, really desperately sad time. But Fran touched on something there, you know, about his weighing room colleagues. The weighing room is going to be a tough place for the next couple of days. I vividly remember being at Kieran Kelly's grave nearly 23 years ago now. Kieran was a good friend of mine. And I remember milling around at the grave after Kieran had been buried, and there was a bunch of jump jockeys standing just alongside me, my friends that I was talking to. And, you know, after a while, one of them said, well, are you going to Tramore tomorrow? And the other fella said, yeah, I will. Sure, I'll get a lift with you. And some other fella said, sure, if you're going, I'll jump into the car. And I just, I couldn't comprehend how fellas would even consider going back out riding in races after that. But they did. You know, life goes on, I suppose. And it's going to be tough for those lads over the next couple of days. But, you know, Michael, I suppose, he won't be forgotten, and may he rest in peace.
Mike and also, just echo the comments, really, all our thoughts are with his friends and family at this time. Ascot on Saturday, the Betfair Ascot Chase. Grade 1 success for Paul Nicholls with Pitt Dory. GC seemed a very popular success. I don't think it's going too far to say Gitchett under siege going into it, but it seemed to mean a lot to Paul.
Yeah, if not under siege, then certainly under the cosh. A long time between drinks. Grade 1 drinks a year for a yard like that. Had a raft of grade 2s over the last couple of years. So, you know, as I said last week, that hadn't been living with the gas turned down, but grade 1s are the currency these firms deal in, and he was highly impressive at Pitt Dory. That's absolutely picture perfect set of conditions for him. Relief from the Nicholls camp afterwards, but I think the key question coming out of this, and I'd like to go round the table here, will 14 times champion Paul Nicholls win another National Hunt Trainers title? I think he's a better than even money chance of doing so, but I'd be interested to hear what you lot think.
Well, Matt, you can have first dibs.
I think it'll be really, really difficult. I do. He knows fine well that he'll never reach those peaks that he reached with Denman and Corto and Big Bucks and Masterminded, and I think it is going to be a real struggle. There is just enough, isn't there, coming through in terms of because obviously Nicky Henderson's not going anywhere, but I think there's enough coming through. I think that you're looking at those offshoots of Nicholls, obviously Dan Skelton, but there are other yards out there that I think are going to fill the void when it comes to Nicholls sort of vacating. I think Ben Paulin and people like that, I think he's potentially going to be a champion.
Matt, these lads are way back. They're way back.
They're way back.
Yeah, look at the numbers. You know, Nicholls may have dipped a bit, but Pauling and that gang are still way adrift of what he's achieving.
I think they can bridge the gap, and I just think the way that these things, the tide turns, and the way that the trends move, is that he will be left behind in the next few seasons.
Whoa.
Interesting. I think it's a certainty to be champion driver again, almost. Because I think when you look at what he's done, what he's achieved, it's not like I mean, if he was Henderson at this stage of his career, having a dearth of young talent at, was it Nicky 74, 75, something like that.
Yeah.
Paul's still got time. He's still got big spending owners. And I also, no disrespect, right now, the bar over here isn't that high in terms of the champion trainer. It's, if Willie Mullins isn't going to play ball and is going to rely on winning the National, the Gold Cup, the Champion Hurdle and 10 Grade 1s at Cheltenham every year to be champion trainer. And it could even be conceivable. What if Nicholls won the National this year? He still wouldn't be. He wouldn't be out of touch with where Skelton is. He's second at the minute, 600,000 behind. If this is crisis, if this is rock bottom for Paul Nicholls, it's not that big a fall that he's taken.
I just think, I think Skelton will dominate. I really do. You look at the figures from this season alone. Nicholls has got. It's not just the Grade 1. He's got one Grade 1. He's only got 2 Grade 2s, a couple of listed winners, and just the one sort of major handicap winner with Can Do Kid. Whereas Skelton, he's got the 2 Grade 1s, but he's got 6, 7 Grade 2s. He's got 7 listed winners. He's won 2 or 3 of the major handicaps as well. I do think that Skelton domination will grow and grow as Nicholls' yard shrinks.
That's fair points. I think the numbers are what are really counting for Dan Skelton. It's quite startling to see that Dan Skelton has had twice as many runners and twice as many winners as his old boss, Paul Nicholls. That is an enormous differential. Dan has run 236 horses, Paul's run 150. But the key point now is we haven't touched on the fact that Megan Nicholls has come aboard as a potential talent spotter. But look at the top owners now, the Donnellys, JP McManus, Ronnie Bartlett, Riches, Manier and Swed and JP McManus. They're not present in any meaningful way at Ditchit. So somehow they need to get more significant investors and probably bigger numbers as well if you're going to cope with Skelton. And that's without mentioning the Henderson threat, because if he had a dynamite Cheltenham, he's banging the mix for this season as well.
Billy, that's the thing with the big Irish owners, and I mean, it's like the new light. JP's bought into one at Skelton's, but Skelton's completely off the radar as well. He's not getting these big money buys. If there's a big name import horse coming from the Donnellys, coming from JP from Martinstown into Britain this summer for next season, it's going to Seven Barrows. It's going to Nicky Henderson. That's the only port of call they've got at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely it is. GC touched on it there. Paul Nicholls doesn't seem to have the big owners that he did have a couple of years ago, and I suppose with the likes of John Hales now having passed on, that's more of his old clientele that are gone out of the game, you know. I just had a quick look before we came on about just at the anti-post markets at Cheltenham, and I looked through all the anti-post markets at Cheltenham. I don't think Nicholls has a horse in the top 3 or 4 in any race at Cheltenham, handicap or Grade 1. So, you know, he's still churning out the winners. He's still well able to train, but he just doesn't have the quality that he once had. Now, these things tend to go in swings and roundabouts, but he's going to need a big upturn over the next couple of years. He might not win the Trainers' Championship this year. He'll certainly give it a good go for the next couple of years, but, you know, unless the quality is there, he is going to struggle.
It's a fascinating question to ask. Why do those major heavy-hitting owners not want to back such a decorated, relentlessly determined 14 times champion trainer? It's an intriguing little subplot to the whole thing, but he's 62, I think, Paul Nicholls. As you said, Dave, he's got plenty of time to bounce back. And he, as Dan Skelton said on Lucky's show, he will not rest until he's at least equaled Old Man Pipe's 15 titles, preferably beaten by one, and then retire on the morning line the following season.
Matt, one thing that struck me, do you think there would be this much focus on the Nicholls young horses if they hadn't spent 660,000 on Regent Stroll and whatever it was on Caldwell Potter? Because best will in the world, there ain't. Dan Skelton hasn't got 4 horses towards the top of the trying for the Supreme Market. He's all in on the new Lion. It's not only Nicholls where this tap isn't turned on.
No, that's fair. It didn't help, did it? I don't think. I mean, obviously you got the wealth of talent that seemed to be coming in. It's just, it seemingly backfired to some degree, and it's certainly not helped with this narrative. Now, obviously, I wouldn't sit here and completely write off Paul Nicholls. I remember going back and some of the things I wrote about Frankie Dettori when he lost the ride on Trev all those years ago. These things, of course he can come back and have these top horses at the top level. But just going back to it again, that handicap, by now, by end of February, he'd normally have mopped up 4 or 5 of the handicaps, even if he didn't have those top absolute A-listers, and just those taking a real dip as well. It is really concerning because you don't win a trainer's title without mopping up those really valuable Saturday handicaps, and he's only won the one.
The Power Gold Cup as well, didn't he?
Did Il Ridotto?
Il Ridotto won that thing. He won the 2 big ones in the autumn.
Andu Kid.
Andu Kid winning the Ladbrokes Trophy. Billy, one thing that struck me, Billy, in terms of the dispersal sales, I mentioned this to GC just in a chat we were having. You presume that the trainers who were buying them back had loaded dice that day, that they knew what they were getting back. But it almost seems as if Rochdale went out the window and they were paying whatever they had to pay to stop anybody else getting their hands on them.
Would seem that way, and dispersal sales do not seem to be the way to go when it comes to spotting talent, because we've seen the 2 big ones, obviously the Caldwell one over here and the Stay Away Phase owner whose name escapes me, Chris Giles, in Britain. And if you're buying horses out of those sales, it's cost you a lot of money for not a lot of reward by the looks of things, So I don't know. I mean, you would think at those dispersal sales you're buying a ready-made product, and obviously if the trainer is keen to buy it back, you would think there's a reason for doing that, but that doesn't seem to have worked out, And look, the way that National Hunt prices are going, I suppose if you're willing to pay 300 grand for a horse that's won 1 pint a pint, you would think that if something has won a Grade 1 hurdle like a Caldwell Potter, then you might be getting value for your 740,000, but it would seem not.
Can you imagine Paul Nicholls if Caldwell Potter wins at the festival? Can you just? It would be spectacular, wouldn't it?
The doubters would get it that day, wouldn't they, JC?
Yeah. No, it's a great angle, and the great thing about Nicholls is you know exactly what mood he's in at any moment, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And from a media point of view, he's been gold dust for a long, long time now, and he'll continue to be so.
But it's wonderful to deal with. We shall obviously follow developments very closely on that front. Sticking with Nicholls, Billy, Racing Post spotted this. Olive Nicholls riding in a Hunter Chase against a horse which she trains herself. I mean, I was left scratching my head to wonder how this could happen. Were you surprised to see it?
Yeah, that was a weird one. And I must admit, even having read the article and looked at the relevant rules, I'm still not entirely sure how she was allowed to do it. It does seem weird. I was operating under the illusion, Dave, that if you trained a horse, you had to ride it in a race if you had a ride, and you couldn't ride anything else. Now, I suppose the fact that it was trained by her father, there might be some bit of a loophole there, but it does seem strange. It doesn't do anything for the integrity of racing, I suppose, to see Olive Nicholls winning on one trained by her father and her own one finishing back in third, So it's maybe not a very good look, but they didn't break any rules, so that's where we are with it, I suppose.
I was watching, just thinking, please let this be a photo finish between those two.
That would have been absolutely tremendous, wouldn't it? But there you go. I went to you with it because I couldn't understand it. I read the article, I read the rule, and just walked out. I don't get this.
It feels like the most blatant conflict of interest.
It made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely staggering, isn't it, Matt?
Such a conflict, yeah.
Talking of staggering, Matt, you ducted down your Premier Inn loyalty card. You headed to Seven Barrows on Monday morning for Nicky's Cheltenham Stable visit. Traditional spoiler by the Racing Post, running their Nicky Henderson Cheltenham Stable Tour on the Sunday. Stay classy, lads. That's just what the great game needs. Give us some nuggets then from Hendo's, Matt. Give us some Seven Barrows nuggets that you picked up.
I think it was a Premier Plus room, actually, Dave. That wasn't necessarily the highlight of the trip, but it had quite a nice sort of purple light in the bathroom. I'm not sure if that was a mood-setting addition, but Henderson was great. He was in really good spirits, honestly. He was positively buzzing compared to last year when things were pretty grim. Even he had a bit of a cough last year. Everyone looked in pretty good health. The big guns are great. No dramas there. John Bond tries to sort of like attack and bite anyone who goes near his yard, near his box. But Constitution Hill, he's just honestly, he talks about him, sort of says, "Oh, I could tether him up to the post over here overnight, and he'd be absolutely fine." You couldn't pick him out of a crowd. He's just one of those so unassuming characters. But they're both in good order, both happy with them, both odds on, obviously. That's the expectation is around those two. Those are the only two he wanted to pull out. There had to be a little bit of niggling from the media to sort of, could we maybe see the 4-year-olds as well? So he produced Lulamba and Palladium, and he spoke very highly of Palladium, who he seems to think is going to win some very nice races on the flat. He was happy with his jumping. I see they're both entered, aren't they, in the Adonis? I do suspect that we might see Palladium this weekend. Don't hold me to that, but he might be the one that they want to get another spin into. And then aside from kind of those four, I wasn't sold, unfortunately, GC, on the spiel around Django Bay, because I was a bit upset about that, because I kind of thought there was a case for him.
For the Arkle.
Yeah, for the Arkle, Django Bay and the Arkle. It was quite clear that obviously he was still gutted about Sergino, and I suppose that probably played a part in how he delivered his message around Django Bay. So I wouldn't completely rule him out, but he knows he's up against it, I think, there with Majborough. And then it came down to kind of like the handicappers, and the ones that he didn't mention were a bit more interesting, in that he didn't really talk about Jericho Repene. He spoke around him and talked up the other ones, so I suspect he's probably the one for the Pertemps final there. But he wanted to talk about, which was it? No Ordinary Joe and Doddy the Great. He qualified, didn't he, with his run just the other day at Haydock. So he talked him up, but I think Jericho was probably the one for the Pertemps. But not earth-shattering, Dave, but it was really, really good to see him in good spirits and looking well ahead of Cheltenham, and the horses look really good.
You get the impression, Matt, that Hendo would be willing to swap a 25-1 anti-post voucher on Lulamba for the Triumph if he had one in his back pocket.
Yeah, he talked up Palladium, but I overheard a conversation with one of the lads who'd ridden out Lulamba in the morning. There was no escaping the regarding he thinks he's going to win the Triumph. He also said he needs to strengthen up and lengthen out. He's got a lot of filling to do, and he could well go chasing as early as next season, Lulamba. But yeah, I think he's the really fast one, isn't he, in the team for the Triumph?
I think we come to Palladium a bit later on when we talk about Kempton, the Adonis Juvenile Hurdle this weekend. But as Timeform point out, Palladium cost 2 Caldwell Potters when he went through the ring last autumn.
Is that our Duke Vinci? Don't Caldwell Potters. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Already Lulamba. What are the modern trends of straight chasing with these horses? It's that second season over hurdles just seems of zero. Anyway, we can move on to that. GC, one thing I did think was interesting, that it was raised to Nicky about the prospect of it being a different champion early. Pride Today's Ahead rolls into town, constituting they might need to get motoring early and do a bit. He might have to get down and dirty, which we've never actually seen him to do. That's the one question, isn't it? Somebody could be asking him in March.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's not impossible that Bright Today's Ahead will go to the champion now. I think that likelihood is increasing, and I hope she does. You just want the best horses in there, and she is one of the best. But it's still all about feels rather than facts, the champion hurdle. But I think, we've lost Sergino, that's tough, and I hope everything goes right with him. It's going to be very important that those big three, for Nicky Henderson now, John Bond, Lulamba, and Constitution Hill, I think they're the 3 shortest priced British trained horses at the entire 2025 festival. We need that trio to all get there hale and hearty, don't we?
Billy, I can't help feeling that the Mayor's Hurdle needs Brightest Days Ahead to win the champion. Otherwise, the pressure on it will grow and grow as to should the expulsion tool be brandished or the conditions change to stop mares of this quality having an alternative option on day one of Cheltenham.
That's a very good point. But look, I suppose we've been here before with the Mayor's Hurdle, Dave. We had the likes of Annie Power and obviously Lossie Mouth last year. There was plenty clamouring for her to run the champion hurdle. Even Q Vega back in the day, loads of people wanted to see Q Vega in a champion hurdle and how she'd get on. So I think that's a debate that will run and run. But the Mayor's Hurdle, even itself, is no foregone conclusion for Brighter Days Ahead. We've a very interesting race at Punchestown tomorrow where we're going to see Jade de Grugy, who was obviously just behind her in the novice race at Cheltenham last year. This is a tried and trusted route for Willie Mullins. He's done this with the likes of Annie Power and Quebec in the past. They've made their reappearance in this race. She's giving plenty weight away, but I would expect her to win tomorrow, and she's going to put herself right in the running for that Mayor's Hurdle. So the Mayor's Hurdle won't be a pushover. I still think Brighter Days Ahead will run there. I know there's rumours about her switching, but I still think when it comes to the crunch that she'll turn up there. So yeah, this is a debate that'll run and run, I think, Dave.
Right, talk to me, GC.
Sorry, I'm thinking of writing something this weekend. It's early days, but as regards Nicky Henderson, I'm thinking of putting this statue campaign on hold. When you look at his record, it's 40 years this year since his first Cheltenham Festival winners, and he had 3, including See You Then, which I think was his first in the Champion Hurdle. When you look at his record, it's 73 festival winners and counting, all sorts of champions. And I think Matt touched on it quite nicely. The way he handles this, this bombardment of media queries and what have you at this time of year, it's quite impressive, isn't it? And as I said, just thinking of putting the old statue campaign on a hold for the moment.
I won't officially announce it's over yet, GC. We'll wait for the weekend and see what the file says. But yeah, the one thing you can say about Nicky, in good times and bad, fronts up to the media in a ways that plenty of others wouldn't do. Billy, let's have I'm told, Billy, by the way, she's going for the Champion Hurdle from well-placed Irish media sources. That's all I'm saying.
What we do know, Dave, is that if she does go Champion Hurdle, she comes with King of Kingsfield, and that's going to set the race up. And that, from a time form perspective as well, the big question, obviously, is we saw that huge number in the Sky Bet Supreme those couple of years ago. We haven't seen it since, but what did he get that day? He got an absolute breakneck gallop to chase down and gallop away from them, and that could set things up to produce that number that we've been after, that 180 figure or something special. So the race really does need it, doesn't it?
And if the King's in there at this stage, and he is, they're obviously tempted, aren't they? Yeah. For Brighter Days Ahead.
Patrick, fascinating when he talks about that Sky Bet Supreme riding in it. It's just going to go helter-skelter. Said, well, these are coming back, and sit and wait until they see Contadute like careering away off the back of that. He said he's never seen it ridden in a race, anything like that. So yes, fingers crossed we do get that clash. Billy, we're going to touch upon a bit of action in Ireland. Kit's Bull. We don't know what he is, but he's 2 from 2 over hurdles, and really liked what he found off the back of the last time. It looked like he might be in a bit of trouble going into it.
It was like we kind of expected him to win, and he won nicely. He took his rating up a small bit. He's 2 from 2 obviously now for Willie. That's a step in the right direction. He's improving gradually. They're talking about the entry hurdle for him. He's entitled to go there, but he will need to improve a fair bit if he's to be up to that standard. No, maybe he will be, and certainly a step up in trip. Looking at him the last day will probably suit. But I must say, my first impression looking at him, Dave, is he's going to make a smashing chaser next year, because he jumps that way, and I think he could be a really good horse over fences next year. Whatever he does for the end of this year, we will see. And obviously Willie went and won the Red Mills Chase as well, which he tends to do most years. He won it with Classic Getaway. It was a funny kind of a race, and Sam, as we know, likes to blast off in front and dominate, but I think probably, I could see why Darragh O'Keefe didn't want to let him go on Journey with Me. But I think in the end, they sort of softened each other up a small bit. The race just worked out nicely for Classic Getaway. Danny just tracked them, and it kind of fell into his lap a small bit. Classic Getaway had been running well, but didn't need to improve his rating to win that. So it was a nice bit of placing from his regard, but neither of those two performances are going to impact on Cheltenham. But there was one really interesting performance at Gordon on the day. If anyone waited until the bumper, I don't know how good a race it was. It was a mare's bumper, but you couldn't but be impressed by the winner, a mare called Aqua Force. She absolutely bolted up. I think she won by 28 lengths, but she's trained by Michael Gunn, who, and I stand corrected by this now, Michael Gunn, I think it was his first winner under rules, even though he's held a trainer's license for more than 28 years. So, I mean, that's a story in itself. Now, I'd be stunned if he's training Aquaforce the next day, Dave, because there's certainly lots of phone calls. I'd say even in the winner's enclosure, he was taking phone calls wanting to know what price he was looking for her,
And Willie pulled another out of the hat. He's winning juvenile hurdles and booking triumph hurdle spots with Sons of Blue Point now. Billy, anything is possible in this great game right now?
Yeah, Blue Lemons. Again, it didn't look a particularly strong maiden hurdle. The big question was, would he get the trip? By Blue Point, obviously Richard Hannon had him on the flat. He seemed to get it quite well. He certainly came up. He found plenty after the last. He jumped quite well, and actually for a Blue Point, he settled quite well through the race. So, I think he's Triumph Hurdle bound. But I'd be surprised if there wasn't a handful better than him, Dave.
BC, we had the Haydock Grand National Trial. It was a good race. Famous Bridge came out on top, but he's got no chance of getting in the big race itself this year. Do you think there's almost an element where we should be adding a winning year into some of these trials to give them a chance of actually being a bit more meaningful?
I've always thought that's potentially a good idea, judiciously used. I wouldn't have, 6 or 8 scattered through the season, but I think it has several fold benefits. It has the potential to make the race on the day more competitive, very good from a PR point of view, and it could get a really progressive young horse into the race that otherwise wouldn't be there, and that's something the National does lack these days, is really progressive younger horses who are coming through the ranks. And if you look through the list of National runners, a hell of a lot of them will not have won a race this season. And that's not to say they can't win the National, as we've seen before. But I do think there is mileage for a couple of winning you're in races. 8.1 would be a pretty good contender. I think there were 12 runners at the weekend in that race, and 10 of them had practically no chance of getting into the Aintree race. So it just doesn't sit quite right when you have a stat like that.
300 through 5 will get in the National. He'll run as well, according to Paul Nicholls. It's Aintree not for the plan. And it was a good run at the weekend. I mean, he went down all guns blazing behind Victorino at Ascot.
Yeah, another cracking run. He obviously loves that race. Seems to come alive this time of year. Can't fault him. I didn't think he was particularly well handicapped, but obviously he's run another blinder, and I think going to sit here and give Nicholls no chance of winning the Grand National this year as well. But no, I think he's
got an agenda.
This is his. This was his day. I thought this might have been his day. I don't see this horse winning Aintree Grand National. I'm not sure what more I can add to that.
Get that up.
Nothing. Nothing. It's ready for the first Saturday in April. Billy, the Bobbyjo is likely to contain a horse that can win the Grand National. It does every year. It contains a Grand National winner, I Am Maximus. What can we look forward to from Saturday's renewal?
We can look forward to a very interesting contest for starters, Dave, if they all turn up. More than likely a Willie Mullins winner, because he's won it every year, bar one since 2016. And he's got 5 entered, all of whom would have realistic chances. Obviously, I Am Maximus, most eyes will be on him. Last year's Grand National winner. They're working back from Aintree again with him. And there was a bit of encouragement to take out of his Irish Gold Cup run, but like last year, he came to Fairuse. He won the Bobbyjo last year. Obviously, the weights are out now. They're not going to get a penalty if they win it. So handbrakes will be coming off this weekend, hopefully, Dave. Not only on him, but also Intense Raffles, who last year's Irish Grand National winner, has had a couple of spins over hurdles, hasn't really caught any ice in them, but again, expect a better performance from him. And then you've got the likes of Nick Rocket, the Thyestes Chase winner, is in there. Grange Clare West he's in the entries, but I'd be surprised if he runs, to be honest. He's still in the Gold Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go there. Manella Cocoon, the Bet365 winner, and then throw in the likes of Capadano and Gentleman's Game, and you have a potentially cracking contest. So hopefully we'll be a good bit wiser after the Bobbyjo at the weekend.
That tends to be a very significant pointer, doesn't it? And I'm sure we're looking for more of a spark from I Am Maximus, and would expect to see one at the weekend. Matt, the British 2-mile hurdling cupboard. We saw Golden Ace and Burdett Road in the Kingwell. Golden Ace got there just about at the line. Did plenty of people think Burdett Road, under different tactics, could maybe sneak third in the champion hurdle? What was your takeout from the Wincanton race?
Yeah, good to see them both run the race and neither completely block the copybook and kind of scratch the champion hurdle dream. So both sets of connections will have to weigh it up. It was interesting hearing James Owen talk about Burdett Road on, I think it was on Luck on Sunday, and he felt he was, he had the best horse in the race, and he was a little bit unlucky to be undone by the way the race unfolded. Perhaps went astride too quick on the ground that was a little bit dead on the day. He also said, though, and it was a little bit off-putting, is obviously that the way that he talks about his juvenile East India Dock, he says this is a fantastic hurdler and a hurdler for the future. Whereas Burdett Road, he talks about being a good flat horse who's doing okay over hurdles, which I think sets it in the right context. And he also explained that the county hurdle had come under consideration as well, and whether they could go back and take the claim with their really capable claimer in the county hurdle under a big weight, obviously having won the Great Wood earlier in the season. So in the balance where the Burdett Road shows up, and I think maybe Golden Ace is the one that could potentially offer strong gallop run into a place in the champion hurdle if she runs there. Did she get a handicap entry, Dave? I didn't have a chance to.
Well, no. I was looking at handicap entries in a mad panic for about 20 minutes. You had to write a piece about them. So it was. It was like I just kept seeing the same Willie Mullins horse in every single one, and you kept moving forward. How people can have loads of bets in the handicaps right now is anyway. Moving on, GT. What news yesterday for York Racecourse and sponsor Sky Bet? The City of York upgraded to Group 1 status. Significantly strengthens that Saturday card. There's our Group 1 sitting alongside the E-board. Do you think it will open up the race to horses who wouldn't have considered it in the past, or connected to horses who considered it?
I really hope so, and I think it needs to really justify its newfound Group 1 status. We all know York have been pushing hard, promoting this race as a potential Group 1 for many, many moons now, and their drive and their ambition and their willingness to shake out the biscuit tin and put very large sums of money into prize money is to be applauded. But I did find this interesting. Yes, Kinross ×2. Yes, Space Blues and Expert Eye have all winners of that race, have all polished that form. But I wonder, I can't be sure, I haven't done the data, I wonder if it really, really fulfills the mathematical requirement that the flat pattern committee generally use. Evened out over the first 3 or 4 to justify its Group 1 status. And this may be me being an old cynic, lads, but I found it fascinating when the press release came out. There were welcoming, glowing quotes, of course, from William Darby, from someone else at York Racecourse, Bridget Guerin, the chairman of York Race Committee. Didn't see any quotes from the flat pattern committee. Lydia Hislop, chairman, Emma Berry, Gina Bryce, Simon Crisford, William Haggis, Richard Norris, Rishi Prasad, Ruth Quinn, Julian Richmond Watson, Nick Smith, and Nicholas Wrigley. I would have liked an explanatory quote from the Flat Pattern Committee about that reaction. Of course, the first rule about your club, you don't say anything negative about your club. Tom Ball of Racing TV says it's about time there was a 7 furlong Group 1. Matt Chapman says they've put the money in, so they deserve it. That's not how it works, gents. It's done on form, analysis, and ratings. So I hope that it attracts better quality horses who come from perhaps the Sussex Stakes. But did you notice that having parked their tanks on Longchamps lawn, France Gallo yesterday announced that the Prix de Moulin, run in early September over the round mile at Longchamp, 78% increase in prize money to €800,000. So it's quite punchy. It's beneficial for the owners. I hope it's beneficial for the racegoers. And one last little thing. I know nothing. I haven't spoken to anyone. I just wonder, the Whirlpool, which I have something to do with, they adore having a Group 1 on a Whirlpool race day. The City of York Stakes is now Group 1. It's also Ebor Day, which is not, at the moment, a Whirlpool Day. I wonder, Dave. I wonder. Put it on the poll. Will Ebor Day be a Whirlpool Day in 2025?
I'm long odds on that. I think it probably will be.
Just put it on the poll, Dave. Don't preempt these things. Just put it on the poll. Let the people speak.
Just the ratings. It definitely met the ratings criteria 23, 22, 21, but wouldn't have done last year in terms of the ratings to qualify for Group 1.
Briege and Vaffortino fought out the finish.
That was
2024.
That was the one. That was the one that didn't reach the criteria. That Long Distance Cup, great Group 1 as well. GC at Ascot. Kyprios has done wonders for that race.
Yeah, and he might do wonders for it again in the future. So no real qualms about that. I really hope we don't end up going down the Aussie route, and I don't think we will, where anyone who's prepared to put a load of Wonga in gets Group 1 status. But no, interesting news for flat fans.
And I thought what was interesting, the Criteria Stakes goes to York on their new Saturday fixture for that Newmarket one that disappears. And I'm led to believe the listed Fred Archer Stakes is bound for Beverley. It's heading to East Yorkshire.
Yeah, is it? It's named after an old jockey. Is it not Tom Wood? Someone Wood, Jem Wood, someone like that. A bloke who was runner-up to Fred Archer multiple times. One quick line that we haven't mentioned, not on the running order. I think this is a significant news line that's sort of creeping under the radar. Sheikh Mansour of Abu Dhabi, owner of Man City, etc., owner of a massive Arabian racehorse stable, has stepped in, shook out his biscuit tin to purchase the historic stud in France. The what's it called? I always hear this in Ben Linfoot's voice. The Arad de Frene le Bouffard. So he looks to have significant thoroughbred ambitions in the coming years, and if he really wants to go at that hard, then look out.
You imagine the bloodstock agents currently trying to make their way to his racing advisors. Yeah, interesting.
If Sheikh Mansour's putting a team together, as Man City have shown, all great lads, Dave. All
great lads. It will be absolutely
no financial impropriety whatsoever.
No. By the book. This will be by the book. I'll tell you what was interesting, because he was supposedly interested by Shadwell lock, stock and barrel, wasn't he? Shortly after Sheikh Hamdan's death. He was one of the people linked with potentialists. I think he's obviously been bubbling away, and it's France for the first base at least. Yeah, we'll follow that story closely. Let's look ahead a little bit now. Saudi, you got a nice piece, GC, Romantic Warrior in Saudi Arabia this weekend. There's some big showdowns on the meeting over there.
Yeah, I know this has a limited reach at the moment, given the jumps fever, but do keep an eye on that. Some of that Saudi card at the weekend. 5:40, I think, Saudi World Cup clash between Romantic Warrior, Hong Kong superstar, winner in Australia, Japan, Dubai, and Forever Young, who ran blinders in the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup Classic. So you've got a Hong Kong Warrior against a Japanese Samurai. But if you're looking for a British horse to take an interest in, is it the Red Sea Turf Cup? It's a high-quality handicap. David O'Mara has that Epic Poet, and he is in tremendous condition at the moment. He has won in Dubai, was an unlucky loser last time, caught in a dawdle, and given that it's a handicap, it'll be a pretty open betting market. I would not be surprised if Epic Poet, remember Lord Glitters in the desert picking up lots and lots of money. I think the canny David O'Mara might be taking a decent check on this weekend.
We know these are tough times for trainers financially, and a couple of stories. Rebecca Menzies, with her dispute, taking ownership of some horses and trying to find new owners for those people behind with bills. And when you see a member of the Saudi royal family on the forfeit list for Owen Richard Hannon, £300,000, it's all putting it all into perspective. Doesn't it seem to be at all levels of the training game? But being up to date with bills must be one of the biggest bugbears, I'd imagine, for those what are big businesses.
I'd imagine it is, and certainly you wouldn't expect to be chasing the Saudi Royal for training fees. I wasn't aware that there was a Saudi Royal on that forfeit list, Dave, I must admit. So yeah, it's tough for trainers. It's much tougher at the bottom end, you'd imagine. But yeah, clearly, it's tough across the board. It seems.
He's not giving up the game though. He had a few runners at the Carnival, Dubai Carnival last week, so he's still got a few farthings in the tank yet.
You won't be welcome back till he pays up here, though, which I'd take him about 30 seconds. I should he decide to buy something else, I would imagine. Let's look ahead to the weekend. Let's touch upon it, GC. We've got Lalamba, we've got Palladium in the Adonis. It's interesting that we thought it was going to be a race course gallop for Lalamba. It might still be, but it's clearly in the back of his mind that he might give it another spin.
Yeah, I haven't had any word as to what the plan is. I would be a bit surprised if he ran Lalamba. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Palladium runs, and then you have the choice of which of the good flat horses, Palladium and Mondo Man, who was second, getting weight from Lalamba and Ascot, or an other. So it has a very fluid look to it, that Adonis at the moment. But for all that people generally say that this Kempton meeting is too close to the festival, it used to be an absolutely fertile source of festival winners. So there is a chance for someone to stake a claim. What did you make of Mondo Man, Matt, at Ascot? He ran well, considering he pulled really hard, didn't he?
He ran pretty well, yeah. I know there was talk of he didn't run anywhere near the level in terms of directly transferring his flat form across to hurdles, But I thought it was a promising enough run. I suppose the obvious thing there is that he was getting a big chunk of weight as well, wasn't he, from Lulamba? I think he was getting 10 pounds on the
Yeah, he
day, so
was.
that would be that would kind of hold him back in terms of rating the form much higher than it looks on the page. But I suppose that would give you a good angle, wouldn't it, if you were Nicky Henderson, to run Palladium off levels with Mondo Man and give you a really good shot at knowing exactly where you were with Lulamba.
The Lulamba angle is that he didn't achieve a sky-high figure at Ascot, and I think that's true, but the third, fourth, and fifth have all upheld or polished that form. He gave some tidy horses a very significant beating, so I suspect we won't see Lulamba this weekend, but I do think we might see Palladium against Mondo Man, two good flat horses.
In that juvenile division, do you think we've seen what there is in Ireland? I know Willie's got a host of unraced ones in that tribe now, but time is getting short, isn't it, for something to suddenly throw the hat into the ring to be at least a leading contender in there?
Pretty sure they have to have nearly run by this weekend, Dave, have they?
Is it this weekend?
I think so. I think that, well, that's the cut-off for certainly some of the races, and it could be for the Triumph as well. I think we pretty much have seen what we've got in Ireland at this stage, and you'd have to say there isn't really a standout amongst them. Hello Neighbour is the obvious one. He's still unbeaten, but he's won both of his starts over hurdles by narrow margins. So will he have plenty? I'd say he'll fire plenty of darts at it, but unlike previous years, he doesn't have a real standout horse for it, as far as I know, as far as I can see at the moment anyway, you know.
Interesting old card at Kempton. Matt, have you got anything else on your radar at this stage out of the weekend?
There is one, Dave. It's kind of blindingly obvious from a handicapping point of view, and I'm slightly surprised that some of the kind of the early birds haven't nibbled this up. It's in the Ladbrokes Trophy Handicap Chase. Now, this is a race that Phlegmatique was entered in initially, and then he obviously ran just the other weekend in the Grade 1 to pick up a bit of not only money in the pot for the trainer's title, but a few Jockey Cup points as well, Dave, for Harry. So that was a job well done. I think he might have come down a couple of pounds in the handicaps as well. So it was like a three-pronged attack on that race. But the owners and Skelton have Heltenham in here. And this is a race that obviously Phlegmatique, that has run well in the last couple of seasons. He's back on his last winning mark. And he's got a bit of Kempton form as well. Most of his wins, I think all of his wins over fences have come on left-handed tracks, but he was he was just narrowly beaten by, it's a reopposing horse. It's Golden Son of Nicholls. It was 12 months ago. He ran a good race at Kempton. So I just wonder if back from a break, Heltenham, he's at about 20-1 at the time of recording. He's going to be backed, isn't he?
There's a nice Nicholls, Skelton and Henderson dynamic to that big handicap chase, isn't there? Keep the pot boiling.
Can you imagine if Nicholls, if Sauvignon bounces back and wins the Adonis, Golden Sun wins, the Doubters are silenced, Matt does a column on Monday about how he'll be champion again in the near future. What a game, the great game is. I don't know, has anybody else got anything else for the weekend? I know it's a mixed bag of action, isn't it? We've talked about the Bobbyjo already, Billy. I don't know if there's anything else bubbling away. It's no problem whatsoever if there's not.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting races, Dave. There's a potentially very interesting listed Mares Novice Chase coming up in the next couple of days, where you have Bioluminescence against Spindlebury. That'll be they're two decent horses. They're both probably Cheltenham bound. It looks like El Fabiolo might turn up at Naas on Sunday. Obviously, it's good to see that he was okay after his fall at Leopardstown. If he turns up, he should win, granted a clear round. And there are a couple of others. I mean, Sunday is definitely the cut-off point for horses to be qualified for the handicaps at Cheltenham. I know that for certain. So there'll be one or two that'll be having their 4th/5th run in those handicaps. There's a part-times qualifier at Naas. And there's also a good winner's bumper, which has been, it's thrown up potential Cheltenham horses in the past. There could be a couple in there. I think there's a couple of bumpers coming up the next few days. Willie Mullins has a few interesting newcomers. I don't know if he has fully played his hand in the bumper division yet, so just keep an eye on them, I suppose, over the next couple of days.
Billy, when's this Bioluminescence likely to run?
Is it, just bear with me, GC, is it tomorrow at Punchestown?
Okay, I keep looking at her thinking she's a really good filly waiting to happen.
Yeah.
She ran a blinder behind Dancing City a few Sundays ago.
Yeah, it's a proper run.
Sorry, it's Saturday Fairyhouse, GC.
Right. Because I really want to see her come to Cheltenham, but they say she needs proper soft ground. No,
She's a big unit, and she's done all her racing on soft or heavy ground. So I'd say it is probably a prerequisite for her.
but no pressure. But this time next week, gents, when we do this podcast again, the handicap weights will be out. Lots of chin scratching. So for you, Matt and Philly, if you could prepare your 5 handicap lot each, top 5 countdown from either side of the Irish Sea. Thank you.
Our column on the Sporting Life yesterday has most of them covered anyway, haven't you, Dave?
No, well, I mean, it was an in-depth, detailed look, Billy, at what's in the handicaps. I mean, I've done my bit. It's over to you two, and I look forward to that. GC, before then, you haven't redecorated the studio at home. You're heading off to Ludlow for an afternoon. Always a good thing to do. How much are you looking forward to it?
I am really looking forward to it. I always enjoy a day out in the Shropshire countryside. 7 contests. Nothing flash, but it's always intriguing at Ludlow. And I was just looking, it's not Prince Charles Day, but one of the races is named in honour of Prince Charles, now King Charles. And I did a bit of Googling. I'm old enough to remember when he had a crack at being an amateur rider. He was about 30 or 31, and he bought a horse from Ireland called Alibar, and he rode it at Ludlow in 1980. Paparazzi back then wasn't what it is now, but there was a young Lady Diana Spencer came along to watch that day in the early days of her courtship. And you Google these things and you look on the images page, and there's a really interesting picture of Di. She didn't like being photographed by the paparazzi. She's got her head down on the rail like that, trying to avoid the cameras. But there's another picture. I'm not sure whether you can see this if I hold it up to the camera. Can you see that?
About there, yeah.
The great thing for her was she wasn't on her own as the cameras snapped that day. She had a friend to keep her company and make sure everything was going all right. And the friend was, feel like a bit like Colleen Rooney revealing here, the friend was Camilla Parker Bowles. History at Ludlow back in 1980.
Yeah, tell you, I bet the producers of The Crown, which had spotted that photo, there could have been a full episode in there, couldn't there? We could have. I might do a spin-off. The Crown, the racing years. You never know. I mean, I'm trademarking that just in case they're listening. The clock has been. There's thank you again to Matt, to Billy, to GC, and to Fran for joining us at the start of the show. We'll be back next week to look. I mean, mainly it's going to be Matt and Billy going through the Cheltenham Festival handicap weights with a fine-tooth comb. GC, myself, the rest.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll be trying to contribute, but it's mainly going to be Billy and Matt with probably 30 or 40 handicap horses on each other's radar. So look forward to that next week. And before then, fingers crossed for a good weekend of action.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.